Welcome, Ella, to the Leaders Who Care series, the youth part of our series. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
No, we're really pleased that we were introduced, and you can share the many things you're actually involved in and what you're doing. Let's start by finding out who Ella is, with respect to like where you're from, where you are now, your family, and then we'll get into all the activities. So share.
Yeah, so I am a junior in high school in the Bay Area, and I'm super passionate about mental health and women's health advocacy. And I became involved when I was in middle school. So I went to an all-girls middle school in the Bay Area called Julia Morgan, and it was an amazing experience that really equipped me with the tools to do the work that I'm doing now. And I really began involved in mental health policy work when I was a freshman in high school. I've worked on a few pieces of legislation in California. That have gotten passed, which is super exciting. And then this summer, I pivoted to some venture capital work. I did a really great fellowship with an organization called Girls into VC, and they're the first organization that is helping young women break into venture capital. So I created a capstone project, which is my newsletter, Health Tech Unveiled, where I interview inspiring founders, investors, and innovators in the health tech space with a focus on mental health and women's health.
Holy cow, you talk fast. So that's awesome. And I'm going to ask you about all that. Tell me about family and whatnot. Do you have siblings? Where are your parents? Are they being good to you today? Tell me about you and all that.
Yeah, so I'm an only child. I'm super close to both of my parents. My mom works in the tech space, so it's been super great, talking to her, especially, with venture capital and the intersection between tech and venture capital. I've always grown up in the Bay Area, so I've always, been surrounded by, startups and that whole ecosystem, which has been super amazing.
Cool. So as a kid, since you're kind of you're then not a kid anymore, but you're becoming an adult. As a kid, what were you interested in? Were you like the one that was organizing all the friends for a cause? Were you a reader, sports? What were you like?
Yeah, I definitely loved art. I was also a reader, and I've always been involved in different causes and advocacy work, since I was younger. I think my passion really started when I was in middle school, just being in an environment that was super supportive and, providing girls with the confidence to achieve whatever they want. So that's something that I'm super passionate about is mentorship of younger women and something that, I really want to work on and foster.
So you remind me of I talked to a young fellow who's 13, and he's big time on literacy for kids and whatnot. And he told me he wants to help the next generation. And I said, "You're 13. You want to help the next generation?" So you're not supposed to ask a woman this, but how old are you?
I'm 16.
So you're 16 and you want to help the younger generation. How do you define the younger generation? And how did you think about that as 16 to think about a younger generation, which isn't that much younger than you?
Yeah, so I definitely say it was my middle school experience. There's a big drop off when girls reach sixth grade in STEM. So they become, disinterested in science, math, technology, engineering. And it's not because they're not interested or they're not confident, but it's because they've been told by society that, there just isn't a lot of support for them in these fields. So something that I'm passionate about is providing girls with the confidence to, enter into the STEM field. They don't have to be interested in, being a doctor or an engineer, but just knowing that those paths and those options are available to them. The work that I'm doing isn't super STEM heavy, but there is, an intersection. And I think going to this middle school and being able to apply different concepts was amazing. And something that was super unique is all of our classes were really like intersected. So we had an engineering class in sixth grade, which was really great to work through the scientific process. And that kind of relates to some of the venture capital work that I'm doing now, seeing how you can start with an idea and ideate and keep going, and it's like a cycle in engineering, and that was a super great experience. So for me, it really is creating that support system for younger women, sharing opportunities that are available, and really helping to create a community where we can lean on each other. There can be a lot of competition among women, especially in fields that are very male dominated, like venture capital. Only 7% of venture capitalists are women, but instead of seeing each other as competition, I think it's really important to support one another, provide each other with resources, and just really be there for one another.
I'm gonna quote Simon Cowell, which I almost don't know why I'm doing it, but he said, "Are you sure there's like not an older person in your body somewhere that's hanging out?" Because that's brilliant. You know, our firm was actually launched 6 years ago at the UN headquarters, and our number one focus was women leadership and women empowerment. In fact, our very first event ever was a young women, girls, entrepreneurs in New Delhi, India consortium, showing them the opportunities they can have. And you said something brilliant there too, is just because they're interested in STEM doesn't mean they have to be a doctor, doesn't mean they have to be this. I think that's a brilliant point, because sometimes you can be maybe overwhelmed or afraid of, you don't want to do that, so why should I study that? But it actually applies to a lot of different things in your life, it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just teaching you how to think again, like with the example of, the engineering process, coming up with an idea or a hypothesis and then working to like reevaluate, talking with other people and changing your thought process and your ideas and always staying open, I think is something that's really important. And just being open to, learning about new subjects and ideas is something that's really important and not boxing yourself in, with STEM or humanities or all these other fields, especially with the work that I'm doing. I'm really working at the intersection of different fields, and I think that's where we can make the most change and the most impact.
Well, I'm waiting for women to literally take over the world. So can you hurry up, please? It's. I remember high school. I was big into sports and some music and stuff, and I was also involved in the community. However, if I go through the list of the things that you've been involved in, we'll be here till tomorrow morning. Um, how do you how do you not get overwhelmed? How do you take all that on?
Yeah, I kind of like to think of my life as like an investment thesis in venture capital. So, an investment thesis dictates the way that you spend capital, right? So, that could be, sector specific. So, which industries do you invest in, which regions? And I like to view my personal investment thesis as the way that I spend my time. So, everything that I do is revolved around the mission to improve, the quality of life for women and people who are struggling with their mental health. So, all these activities that I do kind of fit around that. And they might be in different fields, right? It might be policy or venture capital, but it all fits under this main mission. And that's what fuels me. I am doing, a bunch of different things and all these different activities, but it really, fuels me. And I love to know that I'm making an impact in a small way. And I love working with other people and hearing their thoughts and perspectives. So it really fuels me and is the reason that, I'm doing the work that I'm doing, knowing that we can make an impact in a small way.
Yeah, it's great answer. We found, obviously, especially since COVID and that time, that mental health, I mean, it's always been a big problem, but it's becoming bigger and bigger. And for young women, it's a huge problem as well. And loneliness is a huge problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, we're doing a big mental health initiative. I may have mentioned to you to the lady that's leading it, found this out when she had breast cancer. Breast cancer used to be was an embarrassing thing to talk about too, a little bit before your time, but now it's okay. And mental health is at that same point where people are embarrassed or afraid, whatever, to say that something's wrong, and it shouldn't be. It's just like you said, and maybe you can share a little bit more about what you're doing in mental health. It encompasses, it touches every single thing we're involved in, everywhere we live, work, and play. Mental health, and sometimes people are very good at covering up. Or what's that commercial where they wear a mask in front of them to look like they're happy, but they're really not? Um, Tell us a little bit about the initiatives that you are doing in mental health, and what they mean, and what you do with it.
Yeah, definitely. A piece of legislation that I'm working on right now that I'm super excited about would expand mental health education in California K through 12. So right now it's only in middle school and high school, which is really great, but it's super important that we're focusing on younger kids so they can build and develop those skills so they can thrive once they get older. Life only gets busy and more stressful as you get older, so it's really important that you have a really strong and solid foundation so you know how to deal with all of the challenges that life throws at you. An aspect that I'm super excited about in this piece of legislation is to include a unit on wellness and emotional regulation practices. This is something that I'm super passionate about. It's really important that we equip young people with the tools to navigate their mental health so they don't reach that crisis state.
Yeah, we've certainly found that people don't know where to go, talk to, or they don't know what to say even. Amazingly enough, with all this stuff going on with the access to resources on the internet and whatnot, they don't know where to go. They don't even know resources or or organizations that are mental health, sometimes they don't even recognize that they are for mental health. They don't even know what they are. So that's fantastic. How did you learn to get involved in legislation at your age?
Yeah, so this nonprofit and that I'm working with, I actually started working with them when I was a freshman in high school. And when I was a freshman, I had this passion, like I really wanted to do mental health advocacy and policy work. So I just started reaching out to a bunch of local nonprofits and policy organizations in my community. And I got a response, which was super exciting. And I interned with them last summer. So that internship was really great to learn the foundations of policy and the legislative process in California. And now I lead their youth advisory board, which is a really great opportunity. And within our youth advisory board, we're helping to spearhead this piece of legislation. So my advice for young people is to really reach out to the people in your community, have coffee chats, and put yourself out there. It can feel a little intimidating at first, but people are really, willing to meet with you and mentor you and give you advice. So I think just putting yourself out there is super important.
So is that the Catalyst Center that you're talking about?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, tell me, what do they do? What do they focus on? Is it legislation or what?
Yeah, so they have two arms. The Catalyst Center is their nonprofit arm, and then they also have the Alliance, which is their legislative arm, and they're really focused on improving wellness and in youth in California. So all of the policy and legislation that they do is under that realm. So improving the lives of youth in foster care and people who are navigating with their mental health is their top priority.
I think I'm just going to tell everybody to call Ella. That's what I think I'm going to do. Like just like that TV show, Just Call Saul or something. It'll be Just Call Ella. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the Real Mental Health Foundation.
Yeah, so the Real Mental Health Foundation is a really exciting organization that started a few years ago by Sean Lesser. He was working in impact investing and had his own journey with his mental health and really wanted to start an organization to help, especially men with their mental health, because that has been really stigmatized. So I started working with them in the past few months. I'm helping them out with their social media and prepping for their Real Summit, which is in New York. And it's the first summit that is at the intersection of finance and mental health, which is something that I'm super passionate about. So I'm really helping them, get the word out about this event that they're having.
Yeah, super, super cool. Yeah, I talked to Sean, as you know, a fair amount. And in fact, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get his Leaders Who Care video conversation on the same week as yours and figure out a way to do that, type of thing. What do you do in your spare time?
Yeah, love playing guitar. That's definitely one of my favorite hobbies. I started, I think, when I was in fifth grade, and it's a really great way to relax and de-stress. And that's something that I hear a lot in the mental health work that I'm doing is just finding a hobby, an activity that's not on a screen, not on a device that you can do. And what's really great with guitar is there's really no like expectations. I don't have to be the best at it. I don't have to be perfect at every single chord that I play, but it's just an amazing way to de-stress and take some time to myself. I also love going outside, spending time in nature, going on walks with my friends and my family. That's something that I started during COVID and have done ever since.
Yeah, I saw an interesting test recently where they had 5 or 6 young girls. I think they were grade seven-ish type of thing, and they were asked to each put their phone in a bag, and they couldn't use them for a week. And they came out after the weeks kind of excited to get their phones back. However, each and every one of them said that they felt healthier, they slept longer, they talked to their parents in a different way, they did stuff more outside. They even said that they used to go up after dinner and just go scrolling through social media, and that now they think it's boring to do that. So it was a fascinating test to to hear and stuff. I may have to hire you to do our venture capital work and our mental health work and our well-being work. I mean, we're gonna have to make you the vice president of or stuff like that. But yeah, but it's have you ever heard of a program called Nonflict?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, it's an interesting program, and they have it's Million Peacemakers is I call them social profits versus nonprofits. I like that term better. So if I say that, you'll know. Nonflicts is a workshop training that coaches people how to look at conflict as just different ideas and not something you hate someone over, and they teach people how to be active listeners. It's been proven that if you reduce the stress of that conflict creates, you reduce inflammation in your body and tension, and your mental health is improved, type of thing. So kind of like the guitar in a way, and could be an interesting, the youth of Million Peacemakers could be an interesting organization for you to meet. The other thing I wanted to comment on that you said I think is absolutely brilliant is there's a big problem out there with people feeling that they're failing when they're not Oprah Winfrey or a top rock star or this and this that, because you said there's no pressure to be the best at this and this, is just to enjoy it. A lot of people feel like failures. They feel alone. They feel like they're not worth anything. Talk a little bit more about your feelings about that. You can just do it to be the best you can, but it's not failing not to be Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind. I go to a very competitive school, and that can be a mindset a lot. And I see that in a lot of, the young people. I run a mental health club there, and that's something that we're really working on is how do we reduce stress and this mindset that you have to be the best and that you have to be perfect. And, there's this, cognitive dissonance that people think that having this mindset will actually make your performance better. And it's the complete opposite. When you have more grace with yourself and you just feel more open and there's not this ideal that you need to be perfect, you'll actually see that your performance will increase. So I think that's something that's really important for young people to know is that there's actually a performance side to that too. But I think just doing things that you enjoy, finding your personal mission statement or investment thesis, things that make you feel good, and ways that you're able to make a positive impact in your community, you'll see that your mental health will improve and you'll just feel better about yourself and know that you're helping other people and making an impact.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because perfect is actually boring and actually unattractive and not real. And people are looking for, we do a lot of work with leaders who care as well. And they seem to, because they care about people, their efforts, their authenticity, their emotions, they find that the team, I do a lot of work in sports too, teams win championships, everybody plays a part. You don't have to be the best at every single thing there. That's the whole point. So yeah, brilliant statement. So you're sure you're not 36, right? You're 16. um, um, One other question I wanted to ask you is as I said, we do a lot of work with women empowerment. We placed the CEO of the National Women's History Museum, which is an organization that recognizes women that have never been recognized before and all the amazing things they've done when they weren't giving them a credit for doing it. As a young woman, maybe not needing the challenges of women before you as much, but how do you feel as a young woman, out there against is the wrong word, with other women, with men, young men, competing or just being out there? How does it feel being a young woman in this crazy era that we're in?
Yeah, I think it can definitely be hard. There's so many societal pressures from social media, from the crazy college application process. There's a lot of pressures on young women and just youth in general that this pressure to be perfect. What I would say is to go find community, find like-minded individuals, and you'll feel that this pressure isn't there as much. I did this fellowship, like I mentioned before, and there's such an amazing group of young women who are so accomplished. And I was the first high school student that they had, so I was really nervous going into this. I was like, oh my God, how did I get picked? Having a little bit of imposter syndrome myself, but all the girls were so nice and they also were just so confident. They had almost like a quiet confidence, they knew that they were competent and they didn't have to prove it to anyone. And they were just so willing to, have coffee chats with me and meet with me and mentor me. So I think it's really important to find like-minded individuals and not come from a place of competition. I think that's the worst thing that we can do as young women. There might be limited spots in certain fields that are very male dominated, but to have this mindset that there can only be one woman in a space actually continues to perpetuate that. But if we come together in community, we can, break that mold and have more seats for women in leadership positions. So I would say finding community is super important and, lift up your friends and the people in your network, support them. That's something that's super important. We don't need to compete with each other. We need to find community, and that can also help with mental health and the loneliness epidemic. So I would say finding community and supporting one another is super important.
Yeah, there's are you familiar with what blue zones are at all? Okay, yeah, they the people's hearts and souls, they say, are mostly filled by belonging, which is what you're talking about. Live longer, happier, etc. I could talk maybe all day about this with you, but I have one or two other just questions. Um, a client told me a long time ago, he said the year 2020, which was COVID, it seems to him it was like the year that flew by slowly. And some people feel it feels still like yesterday and it feels like years ago. With all that, and now we're already in 2024, it goes fast. What are you most grateful for? And what are you most hopeful for also?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the progress that we've made in the mental health space and women's health. I think, how it's a bipartisan issue is something that I'm super hopeful about. And I think that's something that needs to continue to happen is reaching across the aisle and realizing that, we're not enemies. Everyone experiences mental health issues. It's something that happens with every human, no matter your race, your socioeconomic background, your gender, anything, your political party, like we all navigate our mental health, and healthcare should not be political. That's something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm really hopeful, seeing bipartisan bills being passed, especially in mental health. That's something that I'm really hopeful about, and is to continue to keep healthcare and mental health bipartisan. And I think that will really help us to make an impact in the space and improve the lives of millions of people around the world.
Well said. Well, I'm really grateful that you are a terrific leader who cares, and very impressive. And I'm hopeful for actually for the same thing. I think you're already making an impact, and thanks for sharing all you've shared on the series. It's so great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.